Today we're going to reach way back in time, nearly 2,000 years back in time. When we go back that far, there is much truth that is lost and much that is made up to either fill in gaps, dramatize events, or humiliate those who faced defeat. No telling of the life of Queen Boudica can be accurate, sadly. So let's jump in that time machine and head back to the beginning of the first century to set the scene. The Romans, damn them, had taken over much of Europe by this time, including the islands that would one day become the United Kingdom. They were kind of harsh, the Romans, and sneaky, and they enjoyed demonstrating their power to the tribes and villages they ruled, including the very large number of varying tribes that inhabited what is now England. In those days, in a small corner of the land that is now mostly Norfolk, with small parts of modern-day Cambridgeshire, Suffolk, and Lincolnshire, lay a land called Iceni. The people there are just going about their business of surviving, making the first coins on the island and being Icenic, when suddenly, boom, in 43 AD, a Roman named Claudius shows up on the island and takes it as Roman conquest. To keep their previously powerful position as much as possible, the Iceni allied with Rome. It was a kind of awkward alliance, though. Rome telling the Iceni what to do, the Iceni going, WTF, Rome. In 47 AD, the mucky-muck Roman governor, Publius Astorius Scapula, ordered all of the client kingdoms, including Iceni, to disarm. The Iceni, though, were all like, hell no, we're keeping our weapons. And so in 47 AD, there was a revolt. Now, Rome could have crushed Iceni completely, but they were busy with other revolts and world conquering and togas. So they crushed him only slightly and let their king, Prasutagus, keep his head. The Iceni were then nominally independent allies for as long as Prasutagus lived. Now Prasutagus died somewhere around 60 AD. And back then, it had become tradition, under threat of Roman punishment, for kings of client kingdoms to leave their lands, their assets, their all, to Rome when they died. Prasutagus had 2 daughters, and he thought a compromise would be to leave half of the kingdom to Rome and the other half to his 2 daughters. Rome naturally took offense to this flagrant defiance of the tradition they forced on their client kingdoms. So their procurator, Catus Decianus, seized everything Prasutagus owned. Apparently, when you seize a king's estate as a good Roman, you must also flog the king's wife and rape his daughters. Just to prove your violent dominance. To prove their economic dominance, Rome called in all the loans they had forced onto the Iceni. Now, Boudica wasn't in for having the Romans behave in such a beastly manner. Oh, no, no, no. She was pissed. The governor was off in Wales, trying to get Wales under control. She set about gathering up an army, a rather impressive one at that, and she began to give the Romans hell. She did not just recruit the Iceni, but also the neighboring Trinovantes. They weren't happy with Rome either. And by hell, I mean that she darn near sent the Romans packing all the way across the English Channel and straight back to Rome. Cassius Dio was a Roman historian. He wrote of the revolt that, quote, terrible disaster occurred in Britain. 2 cities were sacked. 80,000 of the Romans and of their allies perished, and the island was lost to Rome. Moreover, all this ruin was brought upon the Romans by a woman, a fact which in itself caused them the greatest shame. Big Roman bullies done got beat up by a woman and her army. During the revolt, Boudica's army destroyed and looted Camalodunum, which is now Colchester, Londinium, now London, and Verulamium, now St. Albans. But the legions would soon arrive and Boudica and her army were defeated. She died sometime after her defeat of illness or of suicide, depending on the source. She almost won, though. The headache she was causing the Romans almost convinced Nero, who was the emperor of the time, to withdraw entirely from Britain. But then victory occurred and Nero put thoughts of retreat from his mind. And if you think it ended there, you're wrong. Survivors faced harsh retaliation by Suetonius Paulinus. He was eventually replaced with a governor, but until he was, Paulinus was nasty to the Iceni. During the 2-year rebellion as well, according to Romans, the Britons ignored their fields and their crops, and so famine happened. To be fair, agricultural land had been given to retired Roman soldiers who weren't working it, and so famine happened. And what happened to the Iceni? Well, after the rebellion was crushed thoroughly, they were assimilated into the empire and into waves of subsequent invasion and migration. The Romans continued to rule Britain for 350 years afterward. So why is a true crime channel talking about Queen Boudica? Well, it's alleged that she was especially cruel. And if this had happened in modern times, she would have been hung as a war criminal. Now keep in mind that accounts of the rebellion were written by Roman historians, sometimes more than a century after the rebellion ended. When Camalodunum and Londinium were taken by Boudica and her army, it is said that she had it burned down and had all the survivors in both towns tortured and then killed, and then she did the same in Verulamium. Roman historians would claim that she took no prisoners, but put the entire Roman population to death by gibbet, fire, or cross. Cassius Dio would say that even the noblest of women were impaled on spikes, had their breasts removed, and sewn to their mouths. In the end, as history always does, to the English she is a hero, and to the Romans she was a cruel, rebellious warmonger. So you decide. If you're enjoying these videos and want more, don't forget to subscribe and turn on your notifications so that you don't miss any videos. Thank you for watching. We really appreciate it.